We're in Manila, in the Philippines, in the Catholic parish of Edsa Shrine. My name is Danica. I'm 11 years old.
Do you know what's going to happen today?
My baptism, and the baptism of the children who are with me.
Now, how do you feel?
Happy.
Why?
Because I'm going to have a godmother.
I exorcise you every unclean spirit in the name of God the Father Almighty, in the name of Jesus Christ, His Son, our Lord, and Judge in the court. Ama naming lumikha, di na po kayo't basbasan ang tubig na nakalaan para sa pagbibinyag ng mga hinirang. Danica, ikaw ay binibinyagan ko, isa na ng Ama.
The baptism ceremony is being celebrated by Father Matthieu Dauchez. He's a French priest from the Diocese of Manila, and he manages the ANAK-Tnk Foundation, which was created in 1998 by a Jesuit priest. The party continues in a nearby shopping centre in a fast food restaurant. All these happy children who can't wait to tuck into their meal share something in common that you would not suspect at first glance. They have all lived in the street.
This is a very special moment for them. It's not so much the restaurant in itself, rather it's the fact that they are going out, eating out like normal people. When they were in the street, they were on the outside and they picked over the leftovers. Here, they're like normal people. This is already a big change.
Located in the Pacific Ocean, the islands of the Philippines are gems surrounded by idyllic beaches. Manila, its capital, is an incongruous city where the brand new buildings of the wealthy rise up next to the shanty towns. This is a city that is always on the move, with the highest population density in the world. The foundation Tulayan-Kabatan, which means a bridge to the children in Filipino, provides help to the most disadvantaged children. Children in the shanty towns, children on the rubbish dumps, children abandoned in the street. Thousands of children live by themselves in the streets, abandoned by their family or having run away from domestic violence in the home. They form gangs and live a life of theft, drug trafficking and prostitution. The foundation seeks them out and invites them to come and live in an accommodation centre. This gives them a roof over their heads, regular meals, and above all, the possibility of a new beginning. However, in order to get into contact with them, you have to go to their home ground, the street. This is what Father Matthieu Dauchez does with child workers and social workers during the big night events.
What we call a big night is a nighttime event in the streets with the childcare workers, where we go out to meet the groups and gangs of street children and try to find those who would be ready to join the foundation.
We set off with Father Matthieu and Jason, a street childcare worker who belongs to the foundation. Jason knows the streets well because he works in a particular sector of the city every day, gathering information on the children who are there. This evening, he's hoping to persuade some children to come to the centre, including Archie in particular. Archie's a former resident at the foundation who has expressed an interest in returning.
As street child care workers, we each deal with one area. We go to different places where we run various religious activities. Sometimes we give a short talk, or we listen to the children and then we give them something to eat. Then we talk with them about their problems and we aim to comfort them. When one of them is sick, we sometimes take them to the hospital if it is really necessary.
I miss my parents.
Where are they?
I don't know where they are.
Where are they?
I don't know where they are.
How long have you been living in the streets? What have you done to try to find your parents? You know that you can find your parents? Do you remember your name? Do you know where you come from? Do you have any brothers?
There are 5 of us. I'm the youngest in a family of 5.
Do you know where the others are? When did you leave your family? When did you leave your family? Oh, don't cry, don't cry. How old were you when you left your family?
I was 6.
Ano? 6 years old. Mula nung 6 years old, nandito ka sa kalye. Ha? Dito ka sa Binondo.
I haven't returned.
It's a very long process. There are times when they are still under the influence of drugs and it's hard to convince them. They can change their minds very easily. Street children are very fickle. Sometimes they see us as enemies. They throw stones at our van. They resist us and ignore us. Our mission is to help them. Therefore, regardless of how frustrated we feel, we continue to look for them out of love. We can't be angry with them. We must love them. There's a quotation that I find really helpful. Someone who it is not easy to love is the most in need of love.
It takes hours and hours of talking with the children. A while ago, for example, I talked with a 12-year-old because I had heard from someone else that he was being controlled by a paedophile who was supporting him. And the young boy told me, but he gives me food. He's kind to me. In this case, I have to spend a lot of time going deeper into the issue with him so that, little by little, he realizes just how dangerous the situation is. As a matter of fact, the children are well aware of the situation, but they have so little hope in the street that they prefer to be controlled by someone where they have an impression of security without really realizing that they're in the process of destroying themselves.
Jason is a former street child who was taken in by the foundation. His experience makes him an older brother, and this brings him close to the children.
I lived in the streets for almost 7 years.
7 years.
My mother and father were drug addicts.
Nagda-drugs din. Tatay ko nagda-drugs.
There was no unity in the family. They were always fighting. I preferred to stay away from home. Then I learnt about glue sniffing from my friends. I began drinking, and after a while I got used to life in the streets.
Hanggang tumira sa kalye.
It's pretty tough living in the street without a father and mother.
Tumira sa kalye. Oh.
One day, I was lying on a cold pavement and I said to myself, maybe it would be wise to return home, because I had no one to take me in their arms while I was sleeping, no one to give me a bath. If I remember rightly, it was 1999. I was 9 years old when I came to TNK for the first time. I was surprised to see a house. There were people there who took the place of our parents, our brothers and sisters. They took care of us.
At may umaalaga sa'yo ng mga kapatid mo.
That's when I understood that I was valued. Even if I was badly behaved, weird, and had a really bad attitude, I was loved.
Ganyan, ang dami-daming butas. May magmamahal sa'yo.
If you offer a child a roof, some food and some clothes, he will not come off the streets. That's not what interests him. A child will only come off the streets if he begins to regain hope. He climbs out of the kind of black hole he's in. As soon as a child realizes that he can love and be loved, this triggers off something extraordinary. So the big shots you see, because that's what they are, young big shots in the streets. They act hard and are really mean with each other, enforcing a very unforgiving system of rules. After a while at the centre, they turn back into children, very young children at that. This is a miracle that we want to see every child experience.
Finally, several children, including Erwin, decided to come to the foundation. The evening finishes at the Divisoria Market in a search for Archie. Archie is a young boy who ran away from the foundation 6 months ago after a row. On returning to the streets, he quickly went back to his old habits in order to survive. For a short time now, he's been working in this market, carrying merchandise. Jason fixed a time to meet him this evening, and with Father Matthieu, they have come to see whether he will agree to return to the foundation.
Ano, sundukan tayo?
Oh.
Umayad ka?
Archie was the first objective of the evening. He's returned. I'm delighted that he's coming back.
Erwin, Archie and their friends will sleep under a real roof this evening after having eaten a real meal. They will join the boys' drop-in. This is a stabilization centre where they learn the basics of a more gentle existence, sheltered from the dangers of the streets. Thanks to personal mentoring, catch-up lessons, as well as sporting and recreational activities, they have a chance to rebuild their lives. After a period of adaptation, they will be able to move to residential accommodation and a normal school. In total, 115 Filipino employees, childcare workers and social workers work in the foundation. The timetable of the 24 reception centres is set by the times of communal prayer.
Our first rule is to look at children as unique beings, with their own life stories, injuries, strengths and weaknesses. From this starting point, we help them move forward in a series of steps, little by little. The first step is to leave the street, and this isn't as easy as it might seem. The street is like a call to them. There's a kind of false freedom in the streets, which always calls the children back, because they feel slightly in control of their lives. Furthermore, the children have experienced so many disappointments in their lives that, for a while, they cannot believe that they are loved once again, and that they are being given some space to love and be loved. They think that it's an illusion, and they put us to the test to make sure that they are truly loved.
Il va provoquer ça pour essayer de voir si véritablement on l'aime.
My name is James Caparas.
How old are you?
I am 10 years old.
What do you like about the centre?
We get on well together, and I have friends. I'm Andrew Caparas.
How old are you?
I'm 8.
What do you like about the centre?
I like to be able to hug my big brother and always to be together with him.
I want to be a lawyer.
Why?
To protect what's right.
Why? Is there a need for this?
Because there are many children who are badly treated, who need to be defended, because it's not right despite their young age. They shouldn't be mistreated or abused.
What do you think they need?
Freedom.
Where does this freedom come from? What does a child like you need?
A child like me needs to study, to have a good life, not one that comes off the rails. We need a complete family, a house, to eat well, and to have decent clothes.
There is an even deeper dignity needed, which is to manage, little by little, to lead the children to forgive. If these children are able to forgive what has been done to them, in the context of the family or the street with all its abuses, you can see that they will prove to themselves and to the world that they are capable of loving. I mean that they will say to the whole world that, what the world has told them, that they are just objects worthy only of being thrown away, that they are not capable of loving or being loved, is false. When a child is capable of forgiving, he is capable of saying, I love and can be loved. This is the greatest victory.
When Franchel arrived at TNK, she was illiterate. Today, she's about to receive a diploma for attaining an objective that she set herself. We were always in the street because there were too many of us for my parents to send to school. Also, my mother never really believed in the usefulness of education. I made myself a promise to help each one of them once I'd received my diploma and to be one of the benefactors of TNK. We're a large family here. We argue from time to time, like brothers and sisters in any normal family. But it's also a place where I've experienced friendship and the love of a family. Even if we're not tied by blood, everyone is willing to give themselves for others when they're in need. Paolo and Maria are married. They have a 1-year-old son, Justin James. They met at TNK. Paolo now works for the organization as a driver.
We got married at the same time as we were celebrating the founding of TNK. We got married during these festivities, not to encourage others to marry young like us, but to say to them that we have to stand firm in many situations. Relationships are important, but studying also has great importance. What are your plans for your son, Justin James, now? We want him never to lose hope. It's important not to give up as long as he is capable of doing something.
When I arrived in Manila in 1998, one thing struck me. These children were in a terribly miserable state, both materially and morally. They had every misfortune that could possibly befall them, and yet they expressed this in an amazing way, with a completely authentic joy. So there was something, looking at it with our Western eyes, which was quite surprising. We want to say, where does this joy come from when they have nothing to make them happy? Trying to dig deeper into this and talking with the children, trying to understand their story, I have seen in a way 3 different levels of joy. The first level, we've all experienced. It's a joy which is very physical, to do with the senses. These are the simple joys of life, the joys that we feel inside us, if you like. It's anything that makes us a little bit happy. It can range from something very physical, like a good vanilla ice cream, to things such as friendship, having a loyal friend. It's a joy that's very precious, and we shouldn't put it down. It's perfectly legitimate, but it's quite a horizontal joy, the first level of joy. A second level of joy we can also experience easily. My joy comes from giving joy to others. This is the experience of anyone who has volunteered for a charity for any length of time and who realizes that we receive more than we give. So all this joy we want to give, this happiness that we want to give, gives us an even greater joy. The second level of joy is a requirement of the gospel. It's not simply a joy we try to obtain, it's a joy that Christ gives to us. We have to rise to the second level of joy, which is a joy that is first of all given away. But there is a third level of joy, which is even more amazing. A joy that invites us to be deeply united with Christ. United to the point where all the physical dimension disappears. This is, I think, the level of joy that the great saints bear witness to. St. Teresa of the Child Jesus, St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila, Blessed Mother Teresa, speak to us of that joy which, in a kind of way, goes beyond the dimension of the senses and is united with Christ, even to include suffering. And this is what is so astonishing, that a person will be united with Christ, even in suffering to the point where, in sharing intimately in the suffering of Christ, they will also share in his joy, because Christ is the source of joy.
puisque le Christ est source de joie.
Okay, bagong kwento natin kay Jesus. Kayamanan sa bulsa o kayamanan sa puso? Kayamanan sa bulsa o kayamanan sa puso? O madali lang yan, ano yung pinaka-importante? Kayamanan sa bulsa.
Pour illustrer le troisième dix mot de la joie,
So, in order to illustrate this third level of joy, the best example that I've known is that of our young Darwin, who had a muscular disease, Duchenne's myopathy, which meant that his muscles gradually degenerated.
s'éteignait petit à petit, et il est
He died in
décédé
September
en
2012.
septembre 2012.
Darwin was a child who experienced an incredible spiritual pilgrimage here on Earth.
Spirituel sur terre, incroyable.
At first he spoke very badly because he'd only just arrived from the street. And he was like the others, grumpy, especially when he could still move, lift his arms and even crawl. Later, I can't remember now, when he had a sudden burst of faith, and I heard him say, "Father, I have a mission in life."
He was a child who, despite his suffering, always smiled. We often heard him say, "It's God's will. We only have to pray." In his state, he should have lost all hope, don't you think? He should have, but he wasn't sad. And because of his indescribable joy, you became very joyful yourself. And that made you realize and say, "I'm really blessed." You wondered how he stayed joyful despite his suffering, and you thought that you had no reason to give in to sadness. You didn't have the right. He had great hope, so why should I give in to despair? That was my experience with him.
So parang ganun yung tepo ng
You're asking me what's hard for me?
What's hard for you?
Not being able to walk. Edward has regained the use of his legs, but I'm happy for him because he's my friend. Today, my illness is a mission for me.
A mission? Explain this to us. What sort of mission?
A mission to help me learn to know him, and so that I might know how to trust him more and have faith in him.
In whom?
In God, in Jesus. Because he knows everything, and he doesn't overwhelm me. He's the master. And this is what I must do, as long as I can.
These were Darwin's last words. He wrote two things to me on a small piece of paper. The first thing was, "A huge thank you, Father. Thank you." He wanted to say thank you, his last words. And afterwards he put, "I'm very happy." Darwin had nothing to make him happy, in a material sense, nothing. He had nothing other than his shorts and t-shirt, he was on a hospital bed, connected to a lot of tubes, he was suffering terribly because he couldn't breathe. The lung muscles couldn't do it. He had to have constant support. He had nothing to make him happy, and his last words were to say, "Father, I am very happy." On Easter Saturday, Darwin was perfectly conscious, but he didn't say anything. I didn't write anything. He went into a great silence. Darwin died at dawn, on the Sunday of the resurrection. He was so united with Christ in his suffering, to the point where he relived, in a certain sense, Holy Week. In an amazing way, really, his spiritual testimony is joy.
Qu'effectivement, son testament spirituel, c'est la joie. C'est assez étonnant de voir à quel point les enfants des rues de
It's
Manila
really amazing to see how the street children of Manila, consciously or unconsciously, that depends on the child, are raised to this third level of joy because they are profoundly united with the sufferings of
parce
Christ.
qu'ils sont unis profondément aux souffrances du Christ.
This answers my question. When I was surprised to see children who could be so closely united with Christ's suffering and, at the same time, so united with the joy of Christ, we see that these things are all one and the same.
Eh bien, on s'aperçoit que ça ne fait qu'un. C'est ce troisième niveau de la joie. Et c'est là
It's this third level of joy.
qu'on est toujours
And this is the reason that we are still working among the poorest of the poor in an inexplicable torrent of joy,
de joie
which is perhaps explained by this third level of joy, this union with Christ.
qui s'explique justement par ce troisième niveau de la joie. Cette union au Christ.
The third level of joy is therefore a level to which we are raised by grace. We have to open our hearts.
Il faut ouvrir son cœur.
Since we filmed this, Erwin has gone back to living on the street. He is too unstable to come back to the centre. Archie continues to live in the drop-in centre and is gradually becoming more stable. The 115 paid workers at TNK are in this way helping some 1,300 children in Manila. Let us pray for all the street children in Manila and across the world by joining in with the prayer of Darwin Ramos. Lord, when all hope has left us, when our burdens are too heavy and we can no longer go on, stretch out your arms to us and heal us, console us. We humbly ask you for your spirit of love.
ang kanilang paniniwala sa iyo. Sinasamo namin ang aming dalangin para sa kanila.
The word of God for the month is in the Gospel of John, chapter 16, verse 22. So also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you.